Shifting focus now to a CNN News 18 super exclusive, and this is to do with what's happening in our neighborhood in Pakistan specifically, where large-scale protests are now erupting over the disappearances of certain Baloch people from the Gilgit-Baltistan area. Now, this is something that is happening in the backdrop of the impending elections in Pakistan. We had rallies that were taken out in Karachi and Islamabad, where some of these Baloch protesters who took out this march against Baloch genocide rally were even thrashed by the police. Several of them were injured, several of them were arrested. We spoke to one such Baloch activist there who has come out and said that currently there are 68,000 Baloch that are missing. Some of them are in jail, some others are unaccounted for. Listen in to that exclusive conversation.
मामा कादिर बलोच, ये धरना चल रहा है इस्लामाबाद में, दुनिया भर में प्रोटेस्ट हुए, कल लंदन में हुए, गिलगित बल्किस्तान में हुए, कराची में हुए, इस्लामाबाद में तो काफ़ी सारे लोग बैठे हुए हैं, लेकिन इसके बारे में आपका क्या कहना है?
देखिए, ये तो आज से नहीं है, ये 15 साल से हम लोग एहतजाज करते आ रहे हैं मिसिंग पर्सन के हवाले से। यहाँ तो बलूचिस्तान में तकरीबन हमारे डेटा के मुताबिक 68,000 बलोच मिसिंग हैं इस वक्त, जिसमें स्टूडेंट्स हैं, इंसानी हकूक के लोग भी हैं, इंजीनियर भी हैं, डॉक्टर भी हैं, और इंसानी हकूक के हवाले से जो भी काम करता है, ये सारे हर तबका के लोग।
ये 68,000 की जो फिगर आप दे रहे हो, ये 68,000 को किसने डिसअपीयर किया है?
ये बलूचिस्तान में जो है ना एजेंसीज करते हैं, जो ISI, MI, FC, CTD, ये जो है ना पाकिस्तान के अदारे हैं, यही लोग करते हैं। और किसी को इतनी गुंजाइश नहीं है कि किसी को हाथ लगाए। यहाँ कबायली सिस्टम है, एक दूसरों को उठाना नहीं तो जोर से बात करना भी यहाँ जुर्म है।
ये मामा आप बहुत बड़ा एलिगेशन लगा रहे हैं पाकिस्तान आर्मी और ISI के ऊपर कि ये लोगों को डिसअपीयर करते हैं, बलूच लोगों को, और 68,000 एक बहुत बड़ा नंबर है। तो आपको क्या लगता है कि इनको उठा करके ये लोग ने जेल में बंद किया है या मार दिया है?
कुछ मार दिए हैं, कुछ को मार रहे हैं, और कुछ अभी तक उनके अकूबत खानों में, जेल में भी नहीं है, उनके अपने कस्टडी में हैं, जहां वो 6x4 या 6x6 का एक छोटा छोटा कमरा बनाया हुआ है, उनमें इनको पाबंद सलासल किया हुआ है। इनकी आंखें बंद हैं, इनके पांव हाथ भी बांधे हुए हैं। कभी कोई इत्तेफाक से रिहा होके आ जाता है खुशकिस्मत, तो हम उनसे पूछते हैं तो यही दास्तान हमें सुनाते हैं। खाना भी उधर ही, नमाज भी उधर ही, पाखाना भी उधर ही, सब कुछ उसी 6x4 के कमरे में हैं हम लोग, और आंखें भी बंद है। कोई ऐसा निकलता है वो डिसेबल भी होता है, दिमागी तवाज़ुन भी खो बैठता है।
Abhishek, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details on this. Abhishek, the kind of allegations that we're hearing as far as the Gilgit-Baltistan area goes, as far as Balochistan goes, this is not new. We've heard these kind of allegations even in the past. But the number that this Baloch activist is quoting, 68,000 unaccounted persons for, that is a very, very large number. Currently, there is an interim government that is in place in Pakistan. Have we had any response coming in from them about these protests that are happening or these allegations that are being made?
Well, as obvious, the Pakistani government has always denied these allegations by Baloch activists of these atrocities, those human rights violations, forced disappearances of these activists. But we do know, and in fact, India has also raised at times whenever in Human Rights Council in Geneva, that the atrocities committed by the state in Pakistan against several minority groups and Baloch people have been alarming, and the world needs to take notice of that. We know that this March, which the latest protest that is happening since December 6th from Turbat, they are protesting against the Baloch genocide. Now they have started calling it genocide because it is a systematically done atrocities by the state to quell any protest, any voice that raises the issues of Balochistan, that raises their issues of welfare, and how these army-controlled regime has tried to not let them speak for their own cause or for their own development.
Yes, do stay on with me. Sushant Sareen, defense expert and analyst, joining us on this broadcast. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Like Abhishek and I were discussing, these kind of disappearances, these kind of protests that we see, the excesses of the Pakistani army, these stories are not new, unfortunately, for Balochistan, for Gilgit-Baltistan. Why then do we not have the world asking more questions of Pakistan? Why do you think that is?
Well, because very simply, there's been a kind of a selectiveness about human rights when those human rights are not politically convenient for Western countries. They turn a blind eye. The British, for example, will never talk about the kind of genocide which has been taking. It's a slow genocide, but the kind of genocide which has been taking place in Balochistan, or for that matter, the genocide of Hindus in Pakistan. How many people have you heard talk about it? Yeah, there'll be the usual virtue signaling from the, from the Americans and from the Europeans. They'll, pass some statement. But have you ever seen the Americans or the Europeans or the United Nations or the British taking up cudgels on behalf of the oppressed Hindus or the oppressed Baloch? Never. You never see them talk about it, simply because it's not convenient for them to talk about it. But if you look at Balochistan, they tried the political route to demand their rights. They've done peaceful protests, including religious parties. People are not talking about what is happening in Qadeer, which is becoming a Chinese colony right now, and how the local inhabitants of Qadeer have been marginalized in Balochistan. And the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is otherwise the mothership of terrorism in the wider region, that has taken up cudgels on behalf of the Baloch. But the Pakistani state has continued regardless. The judges pass orders which are flouted. The judges will demand that the disappeared people are produced before them. They are not done that. The moment lists are given out of the disappeared people, the dead bodies turn up. They have mutilated dead bodies. We think that they mutilate dead bodies only of soldiers, Indian soldiers, but they've mutilated dead bodies of young students in Balochistan. These are college-going kids who have been picked up from hostels and who have been butchered. But you catch the Western media, which talks about democracy backsliding and the death of democracy and stuff like that. Have you ever seen the Guardian or the Washington Post or the New York Times or any of these virtue signaling papers, woke papers, ever talk about what is happening in Balochistan, or for that matter, what is happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or Sindh for that matter? You'll never hear them talk about it, simply because it is not the convenient thing to do. It's as simple as that.
And that's the most unfortunate bit. These kind of stories that keep coming in from these regions of Pakistan, we hear them every now and then. Unfortunately, there's nothing or very little that's being done about them. For the moment, Sushant Sareen, thank you so much for joining us with your perspective. On that note, slipping into a quick break here on this edition of Nation at 5, but there's lots more lined up for you on the other side. Don't go anywhere.